We usually picture our ancestors as tough guys in dirty animal skins, spending their days chasing mammoths and trying not to die of dysentery. But archaeology ruthlessly destroys this cozy stereotype. Let's travel back 100,000 years. Take the Skhul cave in modern-day Israel or the Grotte des Pigeons in Morocco. The living conditions are an absolute nightmare. It is freezing, there are no antibiotics, and your chances of becoming a leopard's dinner are pushing. And right at this moment, your hardcore ancestor picks up a tiny shell of a Nassarius sea snail. He spends hours of his precious time carefully punching a microscopic hole in it, trying not to crush the fragile surface, just to hang it around his neck. This was no accident. It wasn't some cute impulse for beauty. Why burn scarce calories, which could have been spent tracking prey, for a useless piece of calcium on a string? The answer is simple and a little terrifying. Because without this shell, you are nobody. We find artifacts like this all over Africa and the Middle East, sometimes hundreds of miles from the coast. 95. Someone intentionally dragged this cargo across the dangerous savannah, and all these finds are terrifyingly identical. This means that even back then, a strict cultural standard already existed. A Paleolithic dress code. We started decorating ourselves before we built our first real house or tamed a dog. In fact, these primitive beads are the oldest hype in the history of the planet. That very turning point when the biological species Homo sapiens stopped being just an animal focused on survival and turned into a creature hungry for status and meaning. We started building our personal brand. And if you think your new smartphone or limited edition sneakers are the peak of civilization, I have bad news for you. That is just the habit of our Skhul cave resident taken to the extreme. He was the first to realize something brilliant. It matters not just what is in your stomach, but how others look at you. This was the soft launch of the first social network. Pierced shells acted as likes, and a flashy entrance at another tribe's camp was your stories. Decorative trinkets suddenly became more important than stone axes. A souvenir turned out to be not just a keepsake, but a complex cognitive tool that permanently rewired our brains and helped us survive the Ice Age. Welcome to a harsh world where showing off became more valuable than life itself, long before humans even learned to bake bread. But this raises a very uncomfortable question. If a shell does not keep you warm and does not feed you, why would someone kill to own it? Picture this. You are walking through the prehistoric savannah, and suddenly you spot a group of strangers. If they are completely naked, your brain just sees dangerous biological objects. You either run or you strike first. But if they have necklaces of wolf teeth bouncing on their chests, arranged in a strict pattern, the situation shifts. You instantly read their profile. Okay, these guys are from the hunter clan, they have a strict hierarchy, and they work perfectly as a team. Before humanity invented writing, passports, and QR codes, we needed a way to label reality. Ancient beads were never about the love of art. This was pure data transfer. The first external hard drive. A tiny piece of shell worked exactly like a modern conference badge. It broadcasted your social status, your marital standing, your age, and exactly which crew you belonged to. It was an ultimate friend or foe recognition system running on maximum settings. Archaeologists noticed a paradox. The moment population density grew in a region, the number of ornaments skyrocketed. The logic is bulletproof. When there are few people, everyone knows each other by face anyway. But in a crowd of strangers, you desperately need a visual ID. Beads became the social glue that allowed us to form groups larger than a single family. You could wander hundreds of miles away from your cave, run into a stranger, see a familiar string of ostrich eggshell on them, and exhale. That design meant something specific. We are the same blood. We share the same gods. I can trade with you instead of fighting you. The first globalization in history had just happened. We created a virtual space of meanings long before the internet. One bead is one bit of information. 10 beads are a complex code. Scientists call this symbolic behavior. So it turns out, civilization did not start with the wheel. It started with the ability to agree that a specific little bone on a string means, I am the boss around here. That exact mind-blowing ability to believe in abstract symbols is what would later let us create money, nations, and religion. Without primitive beads, there would be no constitution, because both of them are the product of collective imagination, backed up by a physical object. Ancient fashion was a matter of national security, and regional jewelry styles drew the very first borders. But how did a bunch of bones on a neck help prevent a war between tribes who didn't even speak the same language? Think about the ultimate prehistoric flex. There is no money yet, no bank cards. But the laws of economics are already running at full throttle. Why is gold so expensive today? Because it is incredibly hard to get. Back in the Stone Age, the elite asset of choice was ostrich eggshell beads. And these were not just pretty little trinkets. This was pure Paleolithic luxury. Experimental archaeology is when modern scientists take flint flakes and try to recreate the feats of our ancestors. Well, they found something out. Making a single high-quality bead took about an hour of non-stop work. To put together a decent necklace, a craftsman needed a month of grueling labor. Now, think about those numbers. In a world where the average lifespan was about 30 years, spending an entire month just polishing eggshells is a completely insane investment. Biologists call this phenomenon costly signaling. The logic is simple. If I can afford to wear the result of hundreds of hours of meticulous work around my neck, it means I am so successful that I do not need to run around with a spear from dawn till dusk. I have resources. I have power. And most importantly, I have free time. This was the very first display of surplus capital in history, the ancient equivalent of an expensive watch. But here is where the real magic of logistics begins. Scientists find seashells hundreds of miles away from the nearest coastline, deep inside the continent. 95. They definitely were not washed up there by the tide. These shells were passed from hand to hand through incredibly complex trade networks. What we are looking at is essentially the first global market. Shells became the first currency because they were perfect for the job. They were compact, durable, and most importantly, they were nearly impossible to counterfeit. Just try perfectly drilling and polishing a hard shell without steel tools. This was true prehistoric mining. You invest a massive amount of time and calories into creating an object that, by itself, is completely useless. You cannot burn it for heat. You cannot eat it. But everyone around you unconditionally accepts its value. This is the exact moment the abstract concept of worth was born. Ostrich eggs and rare shells became the equivalent of oil and gold, and the craftsmen who worked them turned into the most respected members of the tribe. For the first time, humanity learned to value not just a piece of fresh meat or a warm animal skin, but the abstract labor invested in an object. 95. This is the fundamental basis of absolutely every economy, from simple barter to Bitcoin. And it was built by people who woke up one day and decided that a handful of pierced stones was worth trading for half a bison. Carcass. Why did ancient people even create money you could not eat? And how did this useless capital actually end up saving them from inevitable starvation? We need to admit one slightly offensive truth. We have not changed at all. Our much-praised brain runs on the exact same basic algorithms as that hairy Cro-Magnon who woke up one day and decided to hang a ripped-out predator tooth around his neck. That ridiculous piece of bone on a string became the rock-solid foundation for what historians grandly call the cognitive revolution. For the first time, we figured out how to pull abstract meaning out of our heads and project it into the physical world. Today, we do exactly the same thing. The stakes are just higher. Why does a sane person need a $5,000 leather bag that cannot even fit a phone? Why do we care about a blue check mark on social media? Why do gamers blow their actual paychecks on virtual skins for a digital assault rifle? The answer might disappoint you. All of this is just those same pierced nacerious shells that ancient humans threaded onto animal sinews. We are profoundly symbolic creatures. We live in a matrix of meaning. If tomorrow morning, all 8 billion people suddenly forgot that colored pieces of paper hold value, and that brands actually mean something, global civilization would collapse in exactly 5 minutes. The entire world economy runs on a blind faith in symbols, and that faith was born in the dark caves of Africa. The very first ornaments allowed us to create an extended identity. A human was no longer just a two-legged body, but also their social status, securely encrypted in accessories. That one trick is what allowed our species to build massive hierarchies and control crowds of millions. But there is a bitter irony here. After spending thousands of years aggressively decorating ourselves, we forgot why the whole thing started. Those very first beads helped our ancestors unite to survive. Modern beads increasingly divide us into castes. And yet, looking at those fragile artifacts in the dirt, we realize something profound. The drive for creativity and self-expression is what made us human. The darkness. It was our first hesitant step toward the stars. Before you can engineer a rocket, you have to learn how to dream of something bigger than a filling piece of roasted meat. And those unremarkable beads are the ultimate proof. They scream across the abyss of time. I was here. I mattered. I was part of something great. That is all for today, friends. Look down at your watch or your sneakers and say hello to your Stone Age ancestor. We are still playing the exact same game. This is the channel where we dig for meaning in the dust of centuries. Drop a like if your beads are cooler than your cave neighbors today. Next time, we will break down why modern luxury brands are just the evolution of Paleolithic marketing. I'll see you then.